Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last lesson of this week. Today, we will use the Cambridge Checkpoint book. Let's start. Regarding our objectives today, we have our spelling words that we have every Thursday. Then we will have some exercises from your workbook to be solved. And finally, we will continue as we started last time with the essay writing to learn how to write a correct essay. Now for the spelling words that we have. The first one is the collarbone. Collarbone is the bone that you have that extended from your neck until your shoulder. Then you have consciousness, which is the state of being alert, awake, and knowing what's happening around you. Then you have precious. Precious is something of a great value or a valuable thing or something very expensive. Buffet. Buffet is a meal with many dishes. Then you have uncomfortable, when you're not relaxed, you don't feel well. Nostalgia, it's a longing for the past, when you have memories, when you were happy. Then you have the word emotive, which comes from emotional. Gnaw is, the G is silent here, is when you bite something. Particular means specific. Then you have obsession. Obsession is when you are obsessed about something, when you care about something more than you should. Then you have the word loathed. It means when you hate something, when you dislike something. Civics is a science or a subject when people start to learn or study about the rights of people or citizens. Then you have the word luxuriant. It means rich or opulent. Then you have insidious, which means cunning. And finally, you have the word muleteer. It is the man or the person who drives the mules. Now we will move on to your workbook to solve some exercises, starting with exercise 5A. We already studied how to put apostrophes in some words to contract them, so we will try here to find the missing apostrophes. Starting with the first sentence, we've an appointment at 6 o'clock and it's already 5:30. So the first word is we have, then o'clock of course needs an apostrophe, and it is already 5:30. B. The firework display doesn't begin till after dark. So two words, does not and till. After that we have in C, you could have done it later if you wanted to. So you should put it in could have and if you had wanted to. For D, the film's complete rubbish, so don't bother going to see it. In this sentence, we have the film is complete rubbish, so do not bother going to see it. Finally, with E, what's the reason for its late arrival? So what is the reason for its late arrival? Notice here that its doesn't need an apostrophe. Why? Because it is a possessive pronoun here. Exercise 5B is about this same thing, about putting apostrophes, contractions, but here we will justify only the ones that may be ambiguous. So starting with the first one, the sentence is, what's happened? What's the problem? How should we know? Both of them are with what's. So these two are different. The first one is what has happened, and the other one is what is the problem. So has and is. How do you make this distinction between the two? When you have a past participle verb after what's, then you will have has. Why? Because when you have has, there should be a past participle verb after it. While the second one, what is the problem? We don't have any past participle verb. That's why we knew it is. Also for D, it contains one that could be ambiguous, which is he would have scored a higher mark if he'd. This he'd, it might be he would or he had. So how should we know? Also about the verb after it. So what's the verb after he'd? It's done, past participle verb. That's why we knew it is had. All the others are clear. You can copy the answers. The last exercise that we're going to do is exercise 7a, when we need to change the verbs that are given below into this simple past tense. Starting with the first one, hurry becomes hurried with changing y to I. We explained the rule here. Whenever you have y, make it I and then put the ed. B, weep, wept. Then we have teach, taught, learn, learned or learned. This one, both of the verbs given are right, as we explained in the rule. Run, ran. Then you have cut, cut remains the same. Lead, led. Swim, swam. Meet, met. You have send, sent. Mean, meant. Forget, you have to say it's forgot. Then we have lie, which is lied. Then the other word is similar but different in pronunciation. We have lay, and the past is laid. Then you have pay, paid. Change the y to I again. And finally you have beat, beat. Last Saturday, we explained how to write a good paragraph, and we started with writing an essay. We explained the parts of the essay, and we had an example of it. Today, we're going to go and elaborate more in writing essays. So first, what's an essay? An essay is a piece of writing that usually has 5 or more paragraphs. Sometimes they can be 3. We said short essays are 3 paragraphs. An essay is written about one topic that has several main points. The main points are introduced in an introductory paragraph and supported in body paragraph. The conclusion is the last paragraph. You can see the picture here: introduction, body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3, then the conclusion. Remember, we can make it all 3 paragraphs by having one body paragraph. So it will be introduction, body paragraph, then conclusion. That's called a short essay. Here are the parts again, so that they wouldn't be forgotten. We have the introduction, body in the middle, conclusion at the end of your writing. The parts that we talked about here are given in more details in this slide. You have the introduction. What do you write in the introduction? You have the general statements and information about the topic. The second and most important thing in essays, which is the thesis statement. List the main ideas in the essay. We will explain this in details later. Then the body paragraphs. Here in this essay we have 3. The body paragraphs support the main ideas of the thesis statement. Begin with a topic sentence, of course. And finally, the conclusion, the one in red, the brief summary of the main points of the essay. To simplify the idea of the essay, we will think of it as a hamburger. How? By having the first layer, which is the introduction, then having the meat with paragraph 2, 3, and 4, of course, which is the body. It can be one as we explained, and I would remind you about that always. And finally, you have the last layer, which is the conclusion. Okay, so always when you forget how the outline, the organization of your essay will be, think of this hamburger and it will help you. Now we will explain each part in details. The first part is the introduction, and we mentioned already that the paragraph of introduction is the beginning, of course. So the introductory paragraph is the first paragraph in an essay. It contains two parts. The first part is a general statement, which is few sentences about your subject. If you're talking about football, you will mention some general things about it, for example. Then you have the most important thing, as I mentioned, the thesis statement. Why is it the most important thing? It is the sentence that tells your reader the main points of your topic and states the overall plan of your essay. So if you mention something in the essay, this is the thing that you will talk about the whole essay. All the paragraphs, paragraph 1, paragraph 2, and 3, will be talking about the points mentioned in your thesis. After finishing your introduction, you will come to the body paragraphs. The body consists of one or more paragraphs following the introduction. Each paragraph supports the main idea of your essay by breaking it down into smaller ideas or subtopics. Each body paragraph consists of a topic sentence and several supporting sentences. A conclusion sentence throws the paragraph together. So, to think of this in the simplest way possible, when you mentioned your points in the thesis that we talked about, now in body, you will talk about these points in details. If you, for example, said in your thesis that I have three role models, which are, for example, John, Peter, and Michael. You mentioned three people, so you will take each one and talk about each one in a separate paragraph, mentioning his qualities or what he did, however you want to describe the man that you're talking about. So, until now, we have introduction, as mentioned here in blue, then body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3. After finishing all these four paragraphs, we will move on to the last part, which is the conclusion. You remember that in one paragraph you have a conclusion as one sentence, while in an essay you have it as a separate paragraph, of course. So, what do we write conclusion? What for? We will say that the conclusion paragraph is the last paragraph in the essay. It completes the essay by doing what? Summarizing or repeating the most important ideas. The conclusion can also include an opinion, a prediction, or a solution to the problem. So, the most important things that you need to concentrate on in your conclusion is that to summarize or repeat the important things in your essay. If things are not yet that clear, these examples that we're going to have here will make you understand this lesson very well. The first example is about the first part, which is the introduction. We said that it contains two things. The first one is a general statement, and the second one is the thesis statement, the important one. So you can have a look at the general statement. He just mentioned some uh, related things to the topic. but the one that's written in blue. And after that starts the important part, the thesis statement. Listen to this. Fortunately, I met three very special friends who made a positive impact on my life during those years and helped me survive the trials of being a foreigner in a completely different educational system. So, in our thesis, our writer met three people. So, how many paragraphs do you think there will be? Of course, three. And we will notice that in the next slide. So, when we start writing the first body paragraph, we had the first person, which is Joe Freda. This is the first person that our character met or our writer met. So he will be talking about him in details. Look, this is a paragraph contains a topic sentence, supporting ideas. Like in these supporting sentences, what will you write? He will write about Joe Frieda. How did he help him? How was he nice to him? All these things. After finishing this paragraph, of course, he will move on to talk about the two other friends, if they are, for example, Michael or John or whoever. He will talk about how they helped him, how were they nice to him, and all these things. But we will not show you the other paragraphs, and we will move on directly to the conclusion. That is the last part of our essay here. You have the conclusion. First, you have the summary of the main idea. So he summarized it, the one that is written in blue, the significance of the kindness that these three people showed me, and the impact that it has made on my life during my experience as an international student at State University cannot be underestimated. Look, he summarized everything that was said about these three friends, and now he will give a resolution or a promise or an opinion, or you can even ignore this part. Only the summary will be enough. But here he gave this promise. Let's see. I will never forget their friendship and will remember their examples of kindness to me whenever I encounter other foreigners in my own country. That's all what we have for today. Think of your questions because after a while we will discuss it in our online session. See you then.